My boyfriend's mom asked what I'd do if I found out he was still married. I laughed and said, "He's not." She didn't laugh back. We were sitting at her kitchen table, the one with the chipped corner that Austin always told me he'd fix someday. She'd invited me over for coffee after our family dinner the night before. "Just us girls," she'd said with that warm smile that made me think I was finally being welcomed into the fold. Her hand trembled slightly as she set down her mug. "I need to show you something," she said quietly. Before I could respond, she pulled out her phone and opened a photo album. The first picture stopped my heart. Austin in a tuxedo, standing next to a woman in an elaborate white dress. The date stamp read 5 years ago, 3 years before I'd met him. "That's Cassandra," his mom said. "My daughter-in-law." I felt the room tilt. "No," I managed. "He told me he'd never been married. We talked about this." I asked him directly when things got serious. She scrolled to another photo. Austin and Cassandra at Christmas 2 years ago. Another from last spring, just months before he'd asked me to move in with him. In every photo, they looked happy, his arm around her waist in that same protective way he held me. "They never divorced," she continued, her voice breaking. "He just stopped coming home, stopped answering her calls. She's been looking for him for 18 months. My hands went numb. All those weekends he said he had to work. The phone calls he'd take in another room. How he'd never let me post couple photos on social media because he was private. How he insisted we keep separate bank accounts. Where is she now?" I whispered. "She still lives in their house. The one he told you burned down in that fire." She scrolled again and showed me a photo of a beautiful Victorian with a blue door, posted yesterday on Cassandra's Instagram. I thought of the apartment Austin and I shared, the lease in both our names, the engagement ring he'd given me last month, how he'd cried when I said yes, telling me I was his entire world and he'd never loved anyone the way he loved me. "Does she know about me?" I asked. His mother's silence was answer enough. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "There's more. You're not the first. After Cassandra, there was Kelly, then Amanda, then you." I stared at her, unable to process. "You're saying he's done this before?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I tried to warn them too. Kelly didn't believe me until she found Cassandra's wedding dress in storage. Amanda figured it out when Cassandra showed up at their apartment. I thought maybe this time would be different. But then I saw the ring on your finger. How many of us were there? How many women had sat in this exact chair, drinking coffee, having their world shattered?" My phone buzzed. A text from Austin. "Running late, babe. Don't wait up. Love you." His mother reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Cassandra wants to meet you. She's downstairs in my car right now. She's been waiting to talk to you for weeks. Ever since she saw you two at the grocery store." Everything clicked into place. The way Austin always avoided that particular store. How he'd suddenly want to leave whenever we went near the south side of town. The panic in his eyes when I suggested we visit his mother more often. "I should go down there," I said, standing on shaky legs. His mother grabbed my wrist. "Wait, there's something else you need to know first." Something Cassandra found out that made her finally stop looking for him. She pulled out a folder from her purse. Inside were legal documents, police reports, and printouts of news articles. My vision blurred as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. "Austin isn't even his real name," she said softly. The documents swam before my eyes. Birth certificate with a different name. Christopher Allen Westbrook. Arrest warrants from 2 different states. Fraud charges. Identity theft. A missing persons report filed by someone named Patricia Westbrook in 2019. "Who's Patricia?" I managed to ask. "His first wife," she whispered. "Before Cassandra. Before any of us knew what he was capable of." The room felt like it was closing in. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. "How long have you known?" 6 months. Cassandra hired a private investigator after he disappeared. That's when everything unraveled. She found out about Kelly and Amanda. Found out about the other names he'd used. Found out about Patricia. "Where is Patricia now?" She looked away. "That's what Cassandra needs to talk to you about. That's why she's been trying to reach you. That's why I finally had to tell you myself." I stumbled toward the door. His mother followed me down the stairs, her hand on my back like she was afraid I might collapse. The morning air hit my face but did nothing to clear the fog in my head. A silver sedan sat in the driveway. Through the window, I could see a woman with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked exhausted, hollow, like she'd been carved out from the inside. Cassandra stepped out of the car. We stood there for a moment. 2 women who'd loved the same man, been lied to by the same man, been destroyed by the same man. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know this isn't how you wanted to find out." My voice came out flat. "How long were you married before he left?" 4 years. We met in college. He was charming, attentive, everything I dreamed of. We bought the house together, talked about starting a family. Then one day he just didn't come home from work. No note, no explanation, just gone. The engagement ring on my finger felt like it was burning through my skin. Did he propose the same way? The sunset proposal at the beach? She let out a bitter laugh. No. He proposed at a restaurant. Made this big speech about how I was his soulmate and he'd been waiting his whole life for me. "I'm guessing he changed it up for you." I nodded, unable to speak. "Kelly got the beach proposal," she continued. "Amanda got it at a concert. He's nothing if not creative." "How did you find me?" I finally asked. "I've been following his patterns, watching his mother's house because I knew he'd have to visit eventually. That's when I saw you two together about 8 weeks ago. You were laughing at something he said, holding his hand. You looked so happy, just like I used to look. I felt sick. All those months of falling in love, building a life together, planning our future. All of it was built on lies. His mother spoke up. We need to go inside. What Cassandra has to tell you, you'll want to be sitting down for. We moved back into the kitchen. Cassandra spread the documents across the table like evidence at a crime scene, which, I was beginning to realize, they might actually be. Christopher, the man you know as Austin, has been doing this for at least 8 years that we can verify, she began. Possibly longer. He meets women, builds relationships with them, proposes, and then drains their bank accounts before disappearing. But we have a joint account, I said. He hasn't taken anything. Yet, she emphasized. With me, he waited until after the wedding, convinced me to put both our savings into one account to save for our future. 3 months after the wedding, he transferred everything out and vanished. $89,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. I have about $65,000 saved. We were supposed to use it for the wedding and a down payment on a house. The house he'd been so excited about just last week. Kelly lost $112,000, Cassandra continued. Amanda lost $78,000. And Patricia, her voice dropped. Patricia lost everything. Her life savings, her house, her car. She had to declare bankruptcy. What happened to her? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. That's the complicated part. Patricia filed a police report, but there wasn't enough evidence to press charges. He'd covered his tracks too well, made it look like she'd given him access willingly. The stress of it all, she had a breakdown. She's been in and out of psychiatric facilities for the past 4 years. My stomach turned. This man I'd built my life around, who I'd trusted with everything, was a predator. A professional con artist who'd destroyed multiple women's lives. The thing is, his mother said quietly, I didn't know. Not at first. He's my son, and I wanted to believe he was just unlucky in love, that these relationships weren't working out. But when Cassandra came to me 6 months ago with proof, I couldn't deny it anymore. I looked at her. Why didn't you warn me sooner? I tried, she said, tears spilling down her cheeks. I called you twice. Left messages saying we needed to talk. But he got to you first, didn't he? Told you I was being dramatic or interfering. He had. He'd said his mother was going through a difficult time and sometimes said strange things. That I should just humor her but not take anything too seriously. I'd believed him completely. There's more, Cassandra said, pulling out another document. This one was a medical report. Patricia's psychiatric evaluation from last year. According to her doctors, she claims Christopher's next target is planned. That he's escalating. Escalating how? She met my eyes. Patricia says he's not just stealing money anymore. She thinks he's building towards something worse. The words hung in the air. I wanted to dismiss them as the paranoid delusions of a traumatized woman, but everything else Patricia had apparently said about him had been true. What exactly did she say? I asked. Cassandra hesitated. She told her doctors that Christopher has a pattern. He chooses women with savings, no close family, and stable jobs. He isolates them gradually, makes them dependent on him emotionally, and once he has complete access to their finances, he makes them disappear. That's insane, I said, but my voice sounded uncertain even to my own ears. Is it? Cassandra challenged. Think about your relationship. Has he encouraged you to drift away from your friends? Suggested you don't need to stay so close with your family since you have him now? The truth of it crashed over me. My best friend Hannah and I used to talk every day. Now it had been weeks since our last real conversation. Austin always had some reason why we couldn't make plans with her. Too busy, too tired, she's too negative, she doesn't understand us. My parents lived 3 hours away. Austin had suggested I only visit every few months instead of monthly like I used to. They're smothering you, he'd said. You're an adult. You need space. I'd rationalized every suggestion, seen it as him wanting more time with just us. Now I saw it for what it was. Isolation. Patricia told the police, Cassandra continued, that Christopher was planning his biggest con yet, something that would set him up permanently. She didn't have details, just fragments of conversations she'd overheard before he left. She tried to warn authorities, but without evidence, they couldn't do anything. My hands were shaking so badly I had to clasp them together. What do you think he's planning? I think, Cassandra said slowly, he's found someone with more than just savings. Someone with assets he can't just transfer out of an account. Someone who'd need to willingly sign everything over to him. My inheritance. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Both women leaned forward. What inheritance? His mother asked. My grandfather died last year. Left me his estate. It's in a trust that I gain full access to when I turn 30 or when I get married, whichever comes first. The value is approximately $2.3 million. The silence was deafening. When do you turn 30? Cassandra finally asked. Not for 6 years. But we're getting married in 3 months. There it is, she said grimly. That's his endgame. He's not after your savings. He's after the entire trust. But I'd have to willingly give it to him, I protested. The trust is ironclad. Even married, he couldn't just take it. Unless you signed it over to him, his mother said, or signed power of attorney, or added him as a beneficiary. He'd been suggesting exactly that. Just last week, he'd brought up estate planning, said married couples should have each other as beneficiaries on everything, that we should have power of attorney in case anything ever happened. He'd made it sound so romantic, so practical, so normal. I'd almost agreed. We need to go to the police, I said, standing up abruptly. With what evidence? Cassandra asked. We have proof he's used different names and had multiple relationships, but we can't prove he's planning to commit a crime. Patricia already tried that route. They can't arrest someone for planning to steal money that hasn't been stolen yet. Then what do we do? His mother looked between us. We set a trap. Over the next hour, we crafted a plan. It made me sick to think about, but I couldn't see another way. If what Patricia said was true, if he really was escalating, other women were at risk. I was at risk. Cassandra would continue monitoring his movements through contacts she'd developed over months of investigation. His mother would feed him information that made me seem like the perfect, trusting target. And I would go home and pretend nothing had changed. The hardest part would be acting normal. Looking at him across the dinner table knowing what he'd done. Letting him hold me at night, knowing he'd held Kelly and Amanda and Cassandra the exact same way. Hearing him say he loved me, knowing those words meant absolutely nothing. Can you do this? His mother asked gently. It's going to be incredibly difficult. If he senses anything is off, he'll disappear. We'll lose our chance to stop him. I thought about Patricia in a psychiatric facility, about Cassandra losing her savings and 4 years of her life, about Kelly and Amanda whose stories I hadn't even heard yet, about the women who might come after me if we didn't stop him now. I can do this, I said. Cassandra handed me a small device. It looked like a regular USB drive, but she explained it was a recording device. Plant this in your apartment somewhere he won't notice, near where you usually discuss finances. It'll capture everything. What about my phone? Can he track that? He probably is, his mother said. Which is why you need to be very careful. Only contact us from burner phones or computers he doesn't have access to. Assume he's monitoring everything. The paranoia that came with that statement was overwhelming. How long had he been watching me? Reading my messages? Tracking my location? There's a support group, Cassandra said quietly. Other women who've been through this with different men. Some of us meet Thursdays at the community center on Elm Street. You don't have to come, but if you need people who understand, we're there. I took the information, tucking it into my purse next to the folder of evidence. Then I hugged them both, these women who'd been through hell and were still fighting. These strangers who cared more about my well-being than the man I'd planned to marry. The drive home felt surreal. Everything looked the same. Same streets, same buildings, same coffee shop where Austin and I went every Sunday morning. But nothing was the same. I was driving back to an apartment I shared with a stranger. A dangerous stranger. His car wasn't in the parking lot when I arrived. I let myself in, looking at our space with new eyes. The photos on the walls of us smiling, arms around each other, the dishes in the sink from breakfast, the stupid stuffed bear he'd won for me at the fair sitting on our couch. Our life together was a carefully constructed lie. I found the USB drive in my purse and looked around for a good hiding spot. The bookshelf, I decided. We had a small decorative box on the middle shelf that held loose change and random trinkets. I buried the device under old receipts and foreign coins, making it look completely natural. Then I sat on the couch and waited for him to come home, waited for the man I loved to walk through the door, so I could look at him and see a monster. He arrived around 8 with takeout from my favorite Thai place. I'm sorry I've been so busy lately, he said, kissing my forehead. Work has been insane, but I got us dinner and I'm all yours for the rest of the night. I smiled. Thank you. That's really sweet. We ate on the couch, watching a show we'd been binge-watching together. He laughed at all the right moments, made jokes about the characters, held my hand during the commercial breaks. He was so convincing. If I didn't know better, I'd believe every second of it. How was your day? He asked during a lull. Pretty quiet. I went to the grocery store, did some laundry. Your mom called earlier. I felt him tense next to me, just slightly. Oh yeah? What did she want? Just checking in. Wanted to know if we'd set a final date for the wedding yet. He relaxed. She's excited about it. I think she's worried we're going to elope and skip the whole ceremony. I laughed like that was the most absurd thing I'd ever heard. No way. I want the full experience. The dress, the venue, the dancing, everything. Good, he said, pulling me closer. Because you deserve everything. The words should have melted me. Instead, they made my skin crawl. We should probably finalize some of those wedding details soon, I ventured. The deposit for the venue is due next month. You're right. And we should probably talk about combining our finances fully before the wedding. Makes everything easier. There it was. The opening move. What do you mean? I asked innocently. Well, we're getting married. Seems silly to keep everything separate. We should have a joint account for all our money, make each other beneficiaries on everything. It's what married couples do. I pretended to consider this. That makes sense. Though my trust fund is kind of complicated. Lots of legal paperwork. I'm happy to help you with that, he said smoothly. We can go through it together. Make sure everything is set up properly for our future. Our future. The future he was planning to steal from me. Let me think about it, I said. I want to make sure I understand all the legal implications. Of course. No rush. We have time. But I could see the calculation in his eyes. He was already planning his next move, figuring out how to push without seeming pushy, how to manipulate me into signing away everything. I excused myself to take a shower, needing space from his presence. Under the hot water, I let myself cry silently, mourned the relationship I thought I had, mourned the version of Austin that never actually existed. When I came out, he was on his phone, texting someone. He quickly locked the screen when he saw me. Who was that? I asked casually. Just work stuff, he said. Crisis with a client that can't wait until tomorrow. The lie came so easily to him. That night, lying in bed next to him, I stared at the ceiling and wondered how many other women had done exactly this. Lay next to Christopher Allen Westbrook, believing his lies, trusting his touch, planning a future that would never happen. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Cassandra. "Are you safe?" I waited until Austin's breathing deepened into sleep, then typed back, "Yes, he's already pushing to combine finances. That's faster than expected. Be careful. We're watching." I deleted the messages and put my phone away. Tomorrow I'd buy a burner phone. Tomorrow I'd start documenting everything. Tomorrow I'd begin building the case that would finally stop him. But tonight, I let myself grieve. Grieve for the love I'd lost, even though it had never been real. Grieve for the life I'd imagined, even though it had been built on sand. Grieve for the woman I'd been before walking into his mother's kitchen that morning. That woman was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone warier, someone who would make sure Christopher Allen Westbrook never hurt anyone again. The next morning, I woke before Austin. I made coffee, scrolled through my phone like normal, and acted like my world hadn't imploded. When he woke up, I kissed him good morning and pretended everything was fine. "I have to run some errands today," I told him over breakfast. "Need anything?" "Nah, I'm good. I have back-to-back meetings until late afternoon." Perfect. That gave me time to meet Cassandra without arousing suspicion. We'd arranged to meet at a cafe 3 towns over, somewhere Austin would never randomly appear. Cassandra was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with another woman. "This is Kelly," Cassandra said, as I slid into the seat. Kelly was petite with red hair and freckles. She looked younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-20s. She gave me a sad smile. "Welcome to the club nobody wants to join," she said. "How long were you with him?" I asked. 14 months. We met at a networking event. He said he was in consulting, traveled a lot for work. That explained why he'd disappear for days at a time. Turns out he was with Cassandra during those trips. "How did you find out the truth?" "His mother called me, just like she called you. But I didn't believe her at first. Thought she was being manipulative, trying to break us up. Then Cassandra showed up at my apartment with their marriage certificate. That was a fun day." The bitterness in her voice was sharp enough to cut. "How much did you lose?" I asked quietly. $112,000. My entire inheritance from my grandmother. He convinced me to invest it in his business. Said we'd double our money within a year. Instead, he cleaned out the account and disappeared. "Did you go to the police?" I tried, but he'd structured everything to look legitimate. Made me sign paperwork that basically said I was willingly investing in his company. Legally, there was nothing they could do. I looked at Cassandra. "And you? What happened after he left?" I spent 6 months thinking he'd come back. Made excuses for him. Thought maybe he'd had an accident or was suffering from amnesia. Anything but the truth. Then my credit cards started getting declined. That's when I discovered he'd maxed them all out before leaving. $35,000 in credit card debt on top of the savings he'd taken. I felt sick. How do we stop him? There has to be something we can do. Kelly leaned forward. "There is, but it's risky and it requires you to keep playing along until we have enough evidence to make criminal charges stick." "What kind of evidence?" "We need him on record discussing the fraud, admitting to his past crimes, explaining his methods. Basically, we need him to incriminate himself completely." "That's what the recording device is for," Cassandra added. "But we need more than just him discussing finances with you. We need him to slip up, to reference his past cons, to say something that proves intent." "How do I get him to do that?" Kelly pulled out a laptop. "We've been researching his patterns. He gets comfortable about 6 months into a relationship, starts dropping hints about his expertise in finance and investment, brags about past successes. If you can get him talking about his accomplishments, he might reveal more than he intends." The waitress came by and we ordered coffee, falling silent until she left. When she was gone, Cassandra showed me a folder even thicker than the one I'd seen yesterday. "This is everything we've compiled. Bank statements showing patterns of large transfers followed by account closures. Testimony from Patricia's psychiatric evaluations. Records of the different names and social security numbers he's used. Job applications with false information. We've been building this case for months. Have you shown this to the police?" "We've tried. But without proof of current illegal activity, they say it's a civil matter. The fraud charges in those other states never went anywhere because he's so good at covering his tracks. We need something concrete, something undeniable." "So I'm your concrete evidence," I said. They both nodded. "I'm sorry," Kelly said. "I know this is terrifying, but if we don't stop him now, he'll just keep doing this. And Patricia thinks he's building towards something worse. What could be worse than ruining someone's financial life?" Cassandra and Kelly exchanged glances. "Patricia claims she overheard him on the phone before he left," Kelly said slowly, "talking about insurance policies. Large life insurance policies on his partners. The implication hit me like ice water. You think he's planning to kill someone?" "We don't know," Cassandra said quickly. "Patricia's mental state isn't great. She could be paranoid or misremembering, but we can't ignore the possibility." "Has anyone checked on Amanda?" I asked suddenly. "You said there were 4 of us, Cassandra, Kelly, Amanda, and me. Where is Amanda?" Kelly's face went pale. "We haven't been able to find Amanda. She's been missing for 8 months. The cafe suddenly felt too small, too hot. Missing? She dropped off the grid right after Christopher left her. Stopped showing up to work, stopped answering calls. Her apartment was cleared out. At first, we thought she'd just moved to start over, but no one has heard from her. Not her employer, not her family, no one. Did you file a missing persons report?" "Her family did, but she's an adult who left on her own. There's no evidence of foul play. The police say she has the right to disappear if she wants to, but you don't think that's what happened, I said. I don't know what to think, Cassandra admitted. Maybe she really did just want to start over somewhere new. Or maybe Patricia's fears aren't as paranoid as we hoped. We need to find Amanda, I said firmly. Before we can prove anything about Christopher, we need to know she's safe. We've been trying, Kelly said. We hired the same private investigator Cassandra used, but Amanda's trail goes completely cold. No credit card usage, no social media activity, no paper trail of any kind. What about her family? Friends? We've contacted everyone we can find. No one has heard from her. It's like she vanished. People don't just vanish, I said. Not without help. The three of us sat in heavy silence, each contemplating the horrible possibilities. Finally, Cassandra spoke. There's someone else we should talk to. Someone who knew Christopher before any of us. Who? His ex-wife from high school. They married young, divorced within a year. She still lives in the same town where he grew up. I found her last month, but haven't approached her yet. Why not? Because she has a restraining order against him. Whatever happened between them, it was bad enough that legal intervention was required. We need to talk to her, I said. She might know something that could help us find Amanda or prove what he's really planning. Cassandra pulled out her phone. Her name is Bethany Morrison. She lives about 4 hours from here. I have her address and phone number. Call her, I said. Set up a meeting. I'll tell Austin I'm visiting a college friend for the weekend. Kelly reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're braver than I was. When I found out, I just ran, moved to a different state, and tried to forget the whole thing. I should have fought back. You're fighting now, I told her. That's what matters. We spent another hour going over details. Cassandra showed me how to use the recording device, how to back up the files to a secure cloud server. Kelly taught me which questions to ask to get Christopher talking without seeming suspicious. By the time I left the cafe, I had a plan. It was risky and complicated, but it was the first time since yesterday morning that I felt like I had any control over the situation. I stopped at an electronics store and bought a burner phone with cash. Then I drove to the community center on Elm Street, the one Cassandra had mentioned. The support group wasn't meeting until Thursday, but I wanted to see the place, make it real in my mind. There was a flyer in the window. Financial Abuse Support Group, Thursdays at 7 p.m. A small note at the bottom said, all genders welcome, confidential. How many people were in there every Thursday, I wondered. How many lives had been destroyed by people like Christopher? How many victims were still trapped in their own versions of my nightmare? I took a photo of the flyer and saved it to my new phone. When I got home, Austin was already there, earlier than he'd said he'd be. My heart jumped. Hey, you're home early, I said, trying to keep my voice light. Meetings got canceled, he said. Thought I'd surprise you. Where were you? Just running errands like I said. Picked up some things for the apartment. I showed him the shopping bags I'd strategically picked up at a home goods store on the way back, hoping he'd been genuinely surprised and not checking up on me. He smiled and pulled me into a hug. I missed you today. The words that used to make me melt now made me want to push him away, but I hugged him back, playing my part. I've been thinking about what you said, I told him, about combining our finances. His eyes lit up with interest that he tried to mask as casual curiosity. Yeah? It makes sense. We're getting married. We should start acting like a married couple now. I'm glad you see it that way. We can start the paperwork this weekend if you want. Actually, I was thinking we should wait until after the wedding. My grandfather's trust has specific clauses about marriage, and I want to make sure we do everything by the book. I could see him recalculating, trying to figure out how to push without revealing his urgency. Sure, that makes sense. Though we could at least combine our regular savings accounts now, start building our joint future. Let me talk to my bank first, I said. Make sure I understand the process. Of course. Take your time. But I could see the impatience flickering behind his eyes. That evening, I suggested we watch a documentary about financial planning. I'd chosen it carefully from Kelly's list of suggestions, topics that might get Christopher talking about money and investments. He was initially reluctant, but agreed when I said I wanted to understand finances better for our future. As we watched, I asked seemingly innocent questions. Have you ever invested in anything that really paid off? A few things, he said vaguely. Real estate mostly. Bought low, sold high. It's all about timing. Did you learn that in school? He laughed. No, I learned it the hard way. Lost some money early on making stupid decisions. But you learn from your mistakes. What kind of mistakes? Just trusting the wrong people, he said. Going in on deals without proper protection. Now I know better. The recording device was capturing every word. Over the next few days, I slowly drew him out. Asked about his past, his previous relationships, his business ventures. He was careful, I'll give him that. Never said anything directly incriminating, but he dropped hints, small admissions that would mean nothing on their own, but would build into a pattern. Meanwhile, Cassandra was setting up the meeting with Bethany. She'd finally reached her, and Bethany had agreed to talk to us. I need to visit my friend Rachel this weekend, I told Austin on Wednesday night. She's going through a rough breakup and needs support. This weekend? We were supposed to look at wedding venues Saturday. I know, I'm sorry, but she really needs me right now. We can reschedule the venues for next week. He looked annoyed, but nodded. Sure, friends are important. Thank you for understanding. Will you be gone overnight? Probably. She lives a few hours away. Text me when you get there safely, he said. I will. Friday morning, I packed a small bag and drove to meet Cassandra and Kelly at a designated spot halfway to Bethany's town. We'd caravan the rest of the way together. During the drive, Cassandra called me on the burner phone. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I'm okay. Nervous about this meeting." Bethany sounded scared when I talked to her. Whatever happened between them, she's still terrified of him. Did she say what he did? Not in detail. Just that he was dangerous and we needed to be careful. She made me promise we weren't bringing him with us. What happened to her? She wouldn't say over the phone. Said she needed to see us in person, needed to know we were really trying to stop him. We arrived in Bethany's town around 2 in the afternoon. It was a small place, the kind where everyone knew everyone else's business. Bethany lived in a modest house at the end of a quiet street. She was waiting for us on the porch, a small woman with dark hair and wary eyes. She looked to be in her early 30s, but there was something aged about her, like she'd seen too much too soon. "You must be Cassandra," she said. "And Kelly, and I'm the current girlfriend," I said, "though not for much longer. Come inside. I don't like being out in the open." Her house was neat but sparse. Minimal furniture, no personal photos on display. It looked like she was ready to pack up and leave at a moment's notice. "Can I offer you anything? Water? Coffee?" "We're fine," Cassandra said gently. "Thank you for agreeing to see us." Bethany sat across from us, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I need you to understand something first. What happened between Christopher and me? I've never told anyone the full story. Not the police, not my family, not my therapist. Because every time I tried, he'd somehow find out. And he'd make my life hell. He's not going to know about this meeting," I assured her. "You can't guarantee that," she said. "He has ways of finding things out, ways of watching people without them knowing." The fear in her voice was palpable. "How long were you married?" Kelly asked. 11 months. We got married right out of high school. I was 17. He was 18. My parents were against it, but I was so in love. He was everything to me. What happened? At first, it was perfect. He was attentive, loving, everything I'd wanted. Then about 3 months in, things started changing. Small things at first. He'd get angry if I spent time with my friends. He'd accuse me of flirting with other men. He'd check my phone constantly. "That sounds like classic controlling behavior," Cassandra said. "It was more than that. He started isolating me from everyone. Made me quit my job because he said the male manager was inappropriate with me. Convinced me to drop out of community college because he said education was making me think I was better than him. Within 6 months, I had no friends, no job, no prospects. I was completely dependent on him." "How did you get out?" I asked. Bethany's hands started shaking. "That's the part I've never told anyone. Because it sounds insane. Because I still don't fully understand what happened." "We're listening," Kelly said softly. "One night, I woke up to find him standing over me with a pillow. He was just standing there, holding it, staring down at me. When he realized I was awake, he put it down and left the room. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened." "Oh my God," Cassandra breathed. I tried to convince myself I'd imagined it, that it was a nightmare. But I knew it wasn't. I'd been awake. I'd seen him. "Did you confront him?" "No. I was too terrified. Instead, I started sleeping with my door locked, started hiding money, started planning my escape. But then something worse happened. I found a life insurance policy he'd taken out on me, $500,000. He'd forged my signature on the paperwork. "That's what Patricia mentioned," I said. "Life insurance policies." Bethany nodded. When I confronted him about it, he said it was standard for married couples, protection for both of us. But I knew better. I knew what he'd been planning that night with the pillow. "You think he was going to kill you?" Cassandra said quietly. "I know he was." The policy had only been active for a month. Most policies have a waiting period before they pay out for certain types of death. He was waiting. "How did you get away?" I told my parents everything. They immediately moved me out while he was at work. We filed for divorce and I got a restraining order. My dad wanted to go to the police, but I was too scared. Christopher had made it clear that if I ever told anyone what really happened, he'd come back for me. But you're telling us now. Because I've been following the news. Amanda's disappearance. I saw her missing persons report online and I recognized the man in the photos with her. It was Christopher, even though he was using a different name. "You think he killed Amanda?" Kelly said. "I think Amanda had life insurance. And I think Christopher is done with just stealing money." The room fell silent. "We need to find out if Amanda had a life insurance policy," I said finally. "And if she did, who the beneficiary was." "How do we do that?" Kelly asked. "Amanda's family might know," Cassandra said. "They filed the missing persons report. They might be able to access her financial records." "What if Christopher is the beneficiary?" I asked. "What if he's already collected on the policy?" "Then we have him," Bethany said. "Because you can't collect on a life insurance policy without a death certificate. And you can't get a death certificate without a body or significant evidence of death. Unless he created that evidence," I said, the horror of it settling over me. "We need to go to the police," Kelly said. "This is beyond gathering evidence for fraud. This is potential murder." "They won't believe us," Cassandra said. "Not without proof. A high school ex-wife's story about a pillow 15 years ago isn't enough." "What about Amanda's family?" I asked. "Would they help us?" "It's worth a try," Bethany said. "But be careful. If Christopher finds out you're digging into Amanda's disappearance, he'll know something's wrong." I pulled out my phone. "I'm supposed to text him when I get to my friend's house. If I don't, he'll get suspicious." "Send the text," Cassandra said. "Keep everything as normal as possible." I sent a quick message. "Made it safely. Rachel's in bad shape, but we're going to have a good girls' night. Love you." His response came within seconds. "Love you too. Have fun. Can't wait to have you home tomorrow." Those words used to fill me with warmth. Now they felt like a threat. We need a plan, Kelly said. A real one. We can't just keep gathering evidence and hoping the police will eventually listen. Bethany stood up and went to a closet. She pulled out a box and brought it back to the table. Inside were dozens of documents, photos, and notes. I've been tracking him, she admitted. For 15 years, I've been following his life from a distance. Every time he moves, every time he changes his name, every time he starts a relationship, I've documented all of it. Why? Cassandra asked. Because I knew eventually he'd do something that would prove I wasn't crazy. That would prove what he really is. And I wanted to be ready with evidence when that day came. She spread the contents of the box across her table. There were photos of Christopher with different women, documents showing his various identities, newspaper clippings about Amanda's disappearance, and printouts of social media posts from his victims. This is incredible, I said, looking through the materials. It's obsessive, Bethany corrected. But when someone tries to kill you and no one believes you, obsession becomes survival. Have you identified all his victims? Kelly asked. No, these are just the ones I've been able to confirm. I'm sure there are more. Probably many more dating back to right after our marriage ended. Cassandra was examining a timeline Bethany had created. According to this, he never goes more than a few months without a new target. He overlaps relationships, sometimes juggling 3 or 4 women at once. How is that possible, I asked. How does he keep track of all the lies? He's incredibly intelligent, Bethany said. And he doesn't see people as individuals. We're all just marks to him, resources to be exploited. The documentation was damning. If we could just get the police to look at it seriously. What we need, Cassandra said slowly, is to connect him definitively to Amanda's disappearance. If we can do that, they'll have to investigate. And once they start digging, they'll find everything else. How do we do that? I asked. Bethany pulled out another document. Amanda's last known location was her apartment. She'd told her family she was going on a weekend trip with her boyfriend, the man we know as Christopher. She never came back. Her car was found abandoned at a trailhead about 100 miles north of here. Was there any evidence of foul play? No. The car was clean. No signs of struggle. Authorities treated it as a possible suicide or voluntary disappearance. But you don't think that's what happened, Kelly said. I think he took her somewhere remote, killed her, and staged the car to look like she walked into the woods on her own. Maybe made it look like suicide. But without a body, there's no case. So we need to find the body, I said, the words feeling surreal as they left my mouth. Or we need Christopher to confess to what he did, Cassandra added. How do we get him to do that? Bethany met my eyes. You make him think you're his next victim. You become so perfect, so compliant, so trusting, that he can't resist bragging about how good he is at this. Narcissists always need to be recognized for their intelligence, their skills. If you play it right, he'll want you to know how clever he's been. That sounds incredibly dangerous, Kelly said. It is, Bethany agreed. But it's the only way I can see to get a confession on record. I thought about the recording device in my apartment, capturing days of careful conversations, about the trust fund Christopher was so eager to access, about the wedding that was supposed to happen in 3 months. I'll do it, I said. But I need help planning exactly what to say. And I need backup in case something goes wrong. We'll be your backup, Cassandra promised. Every step of the way. We spent the next several hours going through Bethany's research and building our strategy. She shared everything she knew about Christopher's patterns, his triggers, his weaknesses. By the time we left, I had a detailed plan and a timeline. The drive back was quiet. We were each lost in our own thoughts, processing everything we'd learned. The magnitude of what we were attempting was overwhelming. Cassandra broke the silence. Are you sure you want to do this? We can find another way. There is no other way, I said. We've all been trying other ways for years. It's time to end this. When I got back to our apartment Sunday evening, Austin was waiting with dinner from my favorite Italian restaurant. How was Rachel? He asked. Better. We talked through a lot. I think she's going to be okay. That's good. I missed you. He pulled me into a hug and I forced myself not to tense up. Every touch from him now felt like contamination. Over dinner, I brought up the trust fund again. I've been thinking more about the estate planning you mentioned, I said. Maybe we should talk to a lawyer together. Make sure everything is set up properly. His eyes lit up. That's a great idea. I actually know a good estate attorney. Used to work with him at my previous job. Of course he did. Of course he had an attorney already lined up, probably someone who'd help him structure everything in his favor. Let me know when you want to schedule something, I said. No rush though, we have time before the wedding. Sure, but sooner is better. These things can take a while to process. I nodded like I agreed, like I wasn't seeing straight through his eagerness. That week, I continued my double life. During the day, I worked my normal job, came home, cooked dinner, pretended everything was fine. At night, after Austin fell asleep, I'd sneak into the bathroom with my burner phone and update Cassandra and Kelly on everything he'd said. Thursday evening, I told Austin I was going to a yoga class. Instead, I went to the support group at the community center. There were about a dozen people there, mostly women, but a few men as well. They sat in a circle sharing their stories of financial abuse. Listening to them, I realized how common this was, how many predators existed, how many lives they destroyed. When it was my turn to introduce myself, I said, I'm here because the man I thought I loved has been systematically planning to steal everything from me. And I just found out he might have killed his previous girlfriend. The room went silent. After the meeting, several people came up to me. They shared resources, offered advice, gave me their contact information in case I needed support. Their kindness was overwhelming. One woman, probably in her 60s, took my hands. "Whatever you're planning," she said quietly, "be smarter than him, and be safe. Men like that don't like losing." I promised her I would be careful. By the end of the second week, I had dozens of hours of recorded conversations. Christopher talking about investment strategies, past business deals, and even some veiled references to previous relationships. Nothing directly incriminating yet, but we were building a picture. Then one night, everything changed. We were having wine on the couch when Christopher's phone rang. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. "I need to take this," he said, stepping onto the balcony. Through the closed door, I could hear his voice rising. He was arguing with someone, though I couldn't make out the words. When he came back inside, he looked rattled. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine. Just work stuff." But it wasn't fine. For the first time since I'd known him, Christopher looked genuinely worried. Over the next few days, he became increasingly distracted. He'd check his phone constantly, make mysterious calls from his car, stay late at the office. Something had spooked him. I reported all of this to Cassandra. "Someone's pressuring him," she said over the burner phone. "Maybe Amanda's family is pushing harder for answers, or maybe one of his other victims is causing problems. Should I ask him about it? No. Let him sweat. Worried people make mistakes." She was right. The following week, Christopher came home early with flowers and champagne. "I want to accelerate our timeline," he said. "Let's get married next month instead of waiting 3 more months." My stomach dropped. "Why the rush?" "Because I love you and I don't want to wait anymore. We can do something small, just us. We can always have the big celebration later." "But I had my heart set on the big wedding," I protested. "All our friends and family there." He took my hands. "I know, and we'll still do that. But legally, we can be married now. Start our official life together." Doesn't that sound romantic? It sounded like panic. Something had changed. Something had made him need to speed up his timeline. "I need to think about it," I said. "It's a big decision." "Of course. Take your time." But I could see the impatience, the urgency, the desperation starting to show through his careful facade. I called an emergency meeting with Cassandra, Kelly, and Bethany the next day. "He's accelerating," I told them. "Something's made him panic." Cassandra pulled up something on her laptop. "I think I know what. Amanda's family just hired a new private investigator. A good one with connections to law enforcement. He's been asking questions about Christopher, using the name he was using when he was with Amanda. So Christopher knows someone's closing in," Kelly said. "Which means he's going to try to close this deal with you as fast as possible," Bethany added. "Get access to your trust, liquidate whatever he can, and disappear." "Or worse," I said quietly. They all looked at me. "What if he's planning to do to me what he did to Amanda? Take out a life insurance policy, stage my disappearance, collect the money from both the insurance and the trust." "That's a possibility we have to consider," Cassandra said grimly. "Then we need to move now," Kelly said. "We can't wait for him to make his move." Bethany nodded. "It's time to push him into confessing. Make him feel so confident that he lets his guard down completely." We spent the next 3 hours crafting the perfect trap. It was risky, maybe insane, but we were out of other options. That evening, I came home with my own surprise. "I've been thinking about what you said," I told Christopher, "about getting married sooner. And you're right. Why wait? Let's do it." His relief was visible. "Really? Really? In fact, I met with my trust administrator today. If we get married within the next 3 weeks, there's a tax advantage. Something about fiscal year processing." I was making this up, hoping he wouldn't question it too carefully. He didn't. "That's perfect," he said. "Let's aim for 3 weeks from Saturday." I pretended to calculate. "That's Valentine's Day weekend. How romantic." He kissed me, and I tasted nothing but lies. Over the next 2 weeks, we threw ourselves into wedding planning. We applied for a marriage license, booked a small venue, invited a handful of close friends and family. To everyone else, we looked like a happy couple rushing to start their lives together. But every night, I was documenting everything, recording our conversations, backing up files, building an airtight case. Cassandra and Kelly were working with Amanda's family's new investigator, sharing everything we'd gathered. Bethany was compiling her 15 years of research into a formal statement. The Thursday before the wedding, Christopher suggested we review our financial planning one more time. "Just want to make sure we have everything in order," he said. We sat at the kitchen table with our laptops. He walked me through documents he'd prepared: joint accounts, beneficiary designations, power of attorney forms, and yes, a life insurance policy on me for $500,000. "This is standard for married couples," he assured me. "We should both have policies on each other." "How much is your policy?" I asked. "The same, $500,000. We're equally protected." I pretended to review the documents carefully, asking intelligent questions, acting like the trusting partner he needed me to be. But I was also carefully positioning my laptop so its camera could capture both of us and all the paperwork. "This all looks good," I said finally. "But can you explain to me one more time how this helps us? I want to make sure I understand our financial strategy." And that's when he made his first real mistake. "Well," he said, leaning back in his chair, "it's all about maximizing our assets while minimizing risk. For example, if something were to happen to one of us, the surviving spouse would be financially protected. The life insurance payout would be immediate, and with the trust fund combined with our joint accounts, we'd have complete financial freedom." He said if something were to happen with such practiced casualness, like he'd said it many times before. Has anything like that happened to people you know? I asked innocently. He shrugged. I had a girlfriend once who died unexpectedly. It was tragic. Really made me realize how important it is to be prepared. My blood ran cold. He was admitting to it. Carefully, vaguely, but he was admitting there'd been a dead girlfriend. What happened to her? I asked. Car accident. Very sudden. If we'd had proper insurance and financial planning in place, it would have made a difficult time less stressful. I'm so sorry, that must have been hard for you. It was, but I learned from it. Now I always make sure my partners and I are financially protected. Partners, plural. The recording device was capturing everything. Over the next few days, I carefully asked more questions. Got him talking about previous relationships, about financial strategies, about the importance of proper estate planning. He was getting comfortable, confident. He thought he'd won. Thought I was the perfect, trusting Mark who'd sign anything he put in front of me. The day before the wedding, I met with Cassandra, Kelly, and Bethany one final time. Tomorrow, either we end this or I become his next victim, I said. You're not going to become his next victim, Cassandra said firmly. We have police standing by. The moment you give the signal, they move in. What's the signal? Kelly asked. I'm going to ask him directly about Amanda during the ceremony, I said. When he's surrounded by witnesses. When he thinks he's untouchable because it's his wedding day. I'm going to ask him what he did to her. That's incredibly dangerous, Bethany warned. If he realizes you know, that's why I'll have a microphone on. That's why police will be stationed nearby. That's why all of you will be there as witnesses. What if he runs? Kelly asked. He won't, I said. He's too arrogant. He thinks he's smarter than everyone. He'll think he can talk his way out of it. I hope you're right, Cassandra said. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Christopher, watching him breathe, wondering how many times he'd done this, how many women he'd lied to, how many lives he'd destroyed. Tomorrow, it would all end, one way or another. The wedding was set for 2 p.m. in a small garden venue. We'd invited about 30 people, mostly my friends and family. Christopher had claimed most of his family couldn't make it on such short notice, which now I understood meant they didn't exist, or he couldn't risk them revealing his real identity. I got ready in the bridal suite with my actual best friend Hannah, who I'd finally told a version of the truth. Not everything, just enough that she understood something was wrong and I needed her support. Are you sure about this? She asked as she helped me into my dress. I'm sure, I said. Cassandra and Kelly were also there, disguised as distant cousins from out of town. They'd both wired me up with a small microphone hidden under my bouquet. The police detective working with us, a woman named Detective Rodriguez, had positioned officers around the venue dressed as catering staff and guests. Everything was in place. The ceremony began right on schedule. Christopher stood at the altar looking handsome and excited. He had no idea what was coming. We got through the traditional opening, the readings, the exchange of vows. Then, right before the ring exchange, I stopped the officiant. Wait, I said. There's something I need to ask first. Christopher looked confused. What? I turned to face him directly, still holding his hands. I need you to tell me about Amanda, I said clearly. I need you to tell everyone here what happened to her. The color drained from his face. What are you talking about? Amanda, your girlfriend before me, the one who disappeared 8 months ago, the one whose life insurance policy you collected on. What happened to her? He tried to pull his hands away, but I held tight. You're confused, he said, his voice strained. I don't know anyone named Amanda. Really? Because I have photos of you two together. I have bank records showing you opened a joint account with her. I have documentation of a life insurance policy with you as the beneficiary. The guests were murmuring, confused. Christopher's mother was in the front row, crying. This isn't the time or place, he said. No, I think this is exactly the right time and place. You were going to marry me, take out life insurance on me, get access to my trust fund, and then what? Make me disappear like you made Amanda disappear? I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but there was panic in his eyes now. Tell them about Patricia. Tell them about Bethany. Tell them about Cassandra and Kelly. Tell them about all the women you've done this to. Detective Rodriguez was moving closer, other officers positioning themselves to block the exits. Christopher looked around, realizing the trap he was in. His face transformed from panic to rage. You stupid bitch, he hissed. You have no idea what you've done. So it's true then, I said. Everything Cassandra said. Everything Bethany warned us about. You're a predator who's been doing this for years. He lunged forward, but 2 officers grabbed him before he could reach me. Christopher Allen Westbrook. You're under arrest, Detective Rodriguez said, pulling out handcuffs. As they read him his rights, he was screaming that I'd ruined everything, that I was supposed to be different, that he'd planned this perfectly. He was still screaming when they loaded him into the police car. The aftermath was chaos. Guests trying to understand what had just happened. My parents rushing to my side, Hannah holding me as I finally allowed myself to break down. But there was also Cassandra and Kelly wrapping their arms around me in support, Bethany standing nearby, tears streaming down her face, finally vindicated after 15 years. The investigation that followed was extensive. Using the recordings I'd made and the evidence Bethany had compiled, police were able to connect Christopher to multiple cases of fraud across 8 states. They found proof of at least 12 different victims, possibly more. Most importantly, they found Amanda. Her body was buried in a remote area near where her car had been abandoned. The autopsy showed she'd been strangled. A search of Christopher's computer revealed he'd researched ways to make a murder look like suicide or an accident. Christopher was charged with first-degree murder, multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and a dozen other crimes. His trial made national news. One by one, his victims took the stand. Bethany finally got to tell her story publicly. Patricia, watching from the psychiatric facility, finally got validation. Christopher was sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. As for me, I spent months in therapy, processing the trauma of loving someone who'd never existed, who'd been planning my murder while I planned our future. I did eventually finish my degree, which I'd started years ago but put on hold because Christopher kept finding reasons why now wasn't the right time. I moved to a new city, started a new job, built a new life, one where I trust carefully, but don't let fear prevent me from connecting with people. Cassandra, Kelly, and I became actual friends. We meet monthly, sometimes just to talk, sometimes to speak at events about financial abuse and predatory relationships. Bethany joined our group eventually, finally able to move past the fear that had defined her adult life. We also started a foundation in Amanda's name. We help victims of financial fraud navigate the legal system, provide resources for rebuilding their lives, and work to strengthen laws around financial abuse. Sometimes I think about that moment in his mother's kitchen when she told me he was still married, how my entire world shifted in an instant, how everything I'd believed about my life turned out to be fiction. But I also think about how I chose to fight instead of run, how a group of women, most of whom were strangers, came together to stop a predator, how we turned our pain into purpose. My trust fund, the one Christopher wanted so badly, ended up funding the foundation. My grandfather would have been proud. It's been 3 years now. 3 years since I stood at that altar and asked the question that changed everything. 3 years since I became the woman who said no more. People sometimes ask if I regret falling for Christopher in the first place, if I wish I'd seen the signs earlier. The truth is, I don't spend much time on regret. What happened, happened. What matters is what I did about it. And what I did was make sure he could never hurt anyone else again. That's enough.